Hi everybody, today I'm going to be covering the newest Destiny 2 season, Season of the Wish, which I haven't covered yet. And that's just because we have this sort of ritual here where I cover the newest Destiny 2 seasons, because I like Destiny. And Season of the Wish isn't exactly bad. And I feel like it's a good point to be a little bit more positive about something in Destiny. But before we get into it, I do want to apologize for any audio issues, any weird noising you might hear. I am not in my usual place of recording. I am at the old place I used to be at when I was recording. So, there is that. So, without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So, to understand why I hold this opinion as I do about Season of the Wish, I think it's important to understand the context that sort of has spawned Season of the Wish into the public eye. To understand that, we have to talk a little bit about Lightfall and the subsequent seasons of this year. Lightfall, as everybody who's ever heard about Destiny at this point probably know, kinda sucked ass, and still kinda sucks. Along with the fact that the, big expansion was bad, the season that came alongside it was also not super interesting. The season afterwards, Season of the Deep, wasn't super fun either, with the most inventive thing Bungie added being fishing. Now, this sounds like a joke in your shooter, but it really isn't. The most nuanced idea they had was fishing. And then they did Season of the Witch, which was completely fine, very mediocre, did nothing new, did nothing really interesting either. Which brings us to Season of the Wish, the current season. This season is Arent themed, meaning that the giant wish dragons that sort of can grant you any wish are themed around them, and the story is also themed around them. However, the more important thing is also talking about the monetization, because as has been customary, Bungie has decided to throw even more monetization at us than they usually do. This season they started with price hiking the season by 100 silver, approximately $1, which isn't a lot. It's just enough to the point where you can't really outright buy a season anymore. You couldn't before either, to be fair. You have to buy the shitty packs, right? So you might, have to buy 2 silver packs instead of 1. It is what it is. And then, more importantly, they did the starter pack. The starter pack is where I think a lot of people preemptively already dropped off. The starter pack considered had 4 exotics, that being Sleeper Simulant, Ruinous Effigy, Traveler's Chosen, and something else that I honestly can't remember, and it isn't really that important. They had these exotics that you could get along with some materials, one Ascendant Alloy, one enhancement prisms, all of those good stuffs. The reality is, they were given in such a low amount that they really didn't matter. In terms of the materials, they were almost unusable, and you could fairly easily, once you get some exotics going, farm them yourself. The exotics themselves, whilst good, were easily obtainable by newer people, and while yes, it was a skip the grind situation, it also just seemed like a scam to anybody who would play Destiny for more than 5 minutes. And that is to say that it was a really bad thing, and rightfully was fucking hated on. Now, it also has to be said that that came out at a time where the community sentiment for Destiny was at an all-time low. So whoever pushed this through has to be one of the most delusional people on the planet to push out a thing that was gonna be hated. Everybody could see it was gonna be hated, but he pushed it out anyway. And I have to be honest, while I could sit here and pretend like I don't understand it, I do. It's because Bungie shot 40% under the expected revenue this year. It's also why the, layoffs has happened, and apparently, albeit I can't find it completely confirmed, but I can find an insider source that says essentially that Bungie might be, completely acquired by Sony, according to the, deal with Sony if they shoot to fund their projected revenue, but I was on IGN or something like that. So that's sort of where we are at. So Season of the Wish comes out. It's a season themed around the 15 Wish, the mystery that's been ongoing for the last almost 7 years of Destiny. I think it's more like 6, and it's something that gripped me instantly, because the 15th Wish is something that I have been ongoing and following since Forsaken, and that's 6 years ago. So to see it being sort of resolved has, obviously has some personal interest for me. However, what's more important is that the story is actually fairly good. The story of Riven and what we are told in the game is actually really good and really compelling. Riven is, like always, just a really cool and interesting character that has a super fuck ton of layers of depth along with everything else. It's just really fucking dope. The seasonal activities aren't bad either. There's Riven's Lair, the standard seasonal fair, kind of boring whatever activity, but then there's the much more interesting Coil. The Coil is again a roguelike mode in Destiny. We have seen it over the last 3 seasons, it's the same thing. However, this time they've managed to make it work. When I say works, I don't mean it as it literally like physically works, because yeah, the other ones did as well. I mean that it is super fun to run. Runs can take you upwards of 40 minutes if you're going for the full length. However, the rewards you're getting are worth it. You get to open 4 chests, each containing endgame materials and loot, and then you get to pick one of 2 chests, either one for weapons or one for armor from the season or the repriced weapons. So that's honestly not a bad reward. And the activity itself scales with difficulty, and honestly it's very fun to run, and hasn't for me gotten older than my about 10 runs of it yet. Alright, so in addition to the seasonal content, we've also gotten a dungeon and an exotic quest. Let's talk about the exotic quest to begin with. The exotic quest is short but very alright. It is essentially just your standard fare of going through a little bit of a mission, solving some very simple puzzles, and then getting an exotic. And it's very cool. It's a strap bow that essentially can make an anarchy-esque trap, so it can make this huge AoE effect on the ground that suspends targets, so it makes them fly up in the air, and essentially they can't shoot you while they're doing that, so it's very alright. It's nothing special, it's nothing crazy, but it's a good bow, and that's always nice, you know. And the story behind the quest is also really cool, which I won't spoil. But yeah, so those the very cool quest, and then there's been the exotic, or well, there's been the dungeon. The dungeon in and of itself is probably the best dungeon of all time in Destiny. And it has a lot to do of both its theme and, more importantly so, its design. The design of the dungeon is very fast paced. Whereas a lot of the other dungeons we've had has had an in-between encounter. You can think the opening encounter in Ghost of the Deep, where you essentially just clear a bunch of trash mobs to pick up a buff to bank it somewhere else. This one doesn't. While it is fundamentally the same, but just by the fact that it has 3 bosses instead of like 2 bosses and a normal encounter, makes it feel a little bit more fresh, in the sense that the first encounter is literally a boss, the second encounter is also a boss, and the third encounter is a boss. And the in-between phases are not very long, despite sometimes being fairly challenging. I think it's, generally speaking, a really good testament to how well Bungie can do things. And if everything had been designed and done as well as the dungeon, I don't think we would have been in the position we are in currently. However, when it comes to the dungeon, it has to be mentioned that the loot from it itself is fairly mediocre. There's a rocket launcher sidearm, which is very interesting and does work fairly alright in night vaults, and especially in Grandmasters, where I've been using it this week. But overall, it sort of falls flat on its face for anything else. For me, it's not going to be something that I'm picking up or using, and same goes for pretty much any of the loot in there. The lore or story behind it is essentially that there is a Ahamkara in this old dungeon, and well, you have to go and make sure the Taken doesn't do some Taken-y stuff with it. I don't know much about it. I just know that it takes place on Fellwinter Peak, or like one of the giant mountains. Maybe it's not exactly Fellwinter, but it takes place in the mountains. It's a very snowy area. It has a medieval theme, and I think it's super cool. And it has been compared a lot to, well, in terms of its design, to something like Dark Souls, which is not exactly bad. And I think overall, that's great. PvP in Destiny is PvP in Destiny, and still continues to be very mediocre, despite the fact that it has the potential to be incredibly good. Rise in cheaters has definitely caused some of the issues I've had with it before to research, but overall, it's the same as it was last season. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. The incentive to play PvP for a PvE player is pretty much limited to getting the Trials grenade launcher because it is technically speaking the best grenade launcher, but grenade launchers aren't really used for anything major anyway. Other than that, PvP is just the same. Nightfalls hasn't changed anything either in them, so it's whatever. The Dawning has been active, and as always, I love the Dawning. I think the winter event is super cute and always has this cozy feel to it that I do enjoy. So I'll probably be playing that, but other than that, I don't have a whole lot of things to say about it. A lot of the things are as they always have been, that we are in the transition period between this season and final shape. We all know how the story will end, unfortunately, otherwise I think I would have been way more interested, and I think this is a bit of a shame. And we know that we will essentially get our way and we will enter the World Traveler. And I think that's alright. I think the season in and of itself, especially because of Coil, manages to practically become one of the better seasons because the bar isn't that high. We are practically limited to 2 or 3 really good seasons. The rest have been kind of mediocre, or at the very least just alright because of other activities. But because Bungie's decisions, especially recently, to sort of neglect the core playlists, it's been hard to really find anything to do. Because currently the biggest issue in Destiny is, for me at least, crafting and the pursuit of loot practically being non-existent. Whereas back in the day I used to hunt for guard roll for sometimes months. Now I just get the crafted patterns for it, so you get 5 red borders in case you don't play Destiny, and that allows you to craft the gun with exactly the stuff that you want on it. So I get those 5. That can take a little bit of time, and then I sort of craft the gun and that's it. I don't touch it at all anymore. Whereas back in the day, I actually used to visit seasonal content more than just doing that season. And I think it's a little bit unfortunate to see that element completely being gone. And obviously it takes a lot of the time sink I used to have and like a lot of the excitement really out of it. Because back in the day, you'd look at each individual piece of loot that you got. Like if I got a subjunctive that I really that I wanted. Like I wanted a guard roll subjunctive, then I'd look over the rest of the rolls that I got to see if that was the guard roll. Nowadays I don't care at all about guard roll hunting. I just look at whether or not it's red border. If it's red border, then I accept it. If it isn't, I dismantle it. And it's that simple for mostly all of the game. And it takes the loot out of it, the looter shooter. And I think that's a bit of a shame. And otherwise, this season is another Destiny season. We haven't seen the entire story yet, but because we know the final shape is gonna happen, it can logically only end with us, winning and going into the Traveler. And how we'll get there, I don't know. I think so far the story has been cool. It's been unique enough to the point where it's kept me interested. However, I do hope that we'll see more of everything, basically. I also hope that Bungie's new wish system that they're going to be introducing towards February, when we would have originally gotten final shape, is going to be good, but we don't know that yet, and quite frankly I'm not going to wait that long with posting this video. I hope that the season pans out well. I hope Lightfall is great, but this will probably be my second last Destiny video before Lightfall, so thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this a lot, and if you did, then thank you for that, and if you didn't, that's alright. But regardless, have a nice Christmas, and I hope you're all doing really well. I know I don't post every week anymore, that's due to college, and I'll catch you all afterwards. I have a couple of videos actually before I leave that I am working on that I feel like it's just sort of important to mention. I am currently working my way through Dark Souls and Baldur's Gate, which I will be posting videos on. Dark Souls will be first. Baldur's Gate I don't know when I'll be done with, but Dark Souls you can expect not next week, the week after. Next week I am gonna be doing a Game of the Year sort of thing for this channel, and like what I've played and what I like, so you look forward to that if you're interested. And that's about it. Have a very nice Christmas. Thank you for watching. Do the YouTube stuff if you want to. If you don't, that's alright. But if you want to support, leave a like, subscribe, all of that stuff, and I'll see you all later. Bye.